The murder of Tristyn Bailey is a tragic event that shook her community to its core, revealing the sinister potential of the human spirit. This 13-year-old cheerleader was brutally taken from her community of St. John's, Florida on May 9th, 2021. This case, which rattled the community and caused waves nationally, represents an immense loss of youthful innocence. Welcome to this True Crime Never Sleeps podcast. I'm your host, Larry Elise. On today's episode of Murder Monday, we dive into the shocking and tragic murder of Tristyn Bailey. This episode is sponsored by Good Ranchers. If you're anything like me, you know that good quality meat makes all the difference in your home-cooked meals. That's why I love Good Ranchers. They deliver 100% of American premium meat straight to my doorstep. Since I started using them, my barbecues have gone from great to phenomenal. If you're a foodie or just like a good steak, check out Good Ranchers. It's a game changer for meal times. You can use the link in the description and help support the channel. Before we dive into today's episode, we'd like to remind you can find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Just search the True Crime Never Sleeps podcast. And of course, thank you so much for watching and listening. Without further ado, let's dive into the tragic murder of Tristyn Bailey. Tristyn was last seen alive around 1:15 a.m., captured by a surveillance camera in the Durbin Crossing subdivision. The footage showed her walking leisurely, seemingly without fear or apprehension. In the quiet, suburban Florida neighborhood, late-night traffic was minimal, and there was no immediate cause for alarm. When Tristyn failed to return home, panic set in. Her family quickly alerted the local authorities, and by the late morning, a missing persons report was filed. The announcement of her disappearance set off a wave of concern throughout the community, where the notion of a missing child was unfathomable. The urgency to locate Tristyn was palpable, as every passing hour decreased the chances of a safe return. The community's response to the crisis was immediate. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers united to find young Tristyn. Organized search parties roamed the area, scanning nearby woods, parks, and bodies of water. Volunteers distributed flyers, and social media platforms were flooded with appeals for information about Tristyn's whereabouts. This collective response underscored the shared understanding that the safety of one child reflected on the safety of all. As day turned into night, the search for Tristyn continued with growing intensity. The local law enforcement's efforts were amplified by specialized search and rescue units. Drones and helicopters were deployed to survey the areas unreachable on foot. Despite the exhaustive efforts, Tristyn remained missing, and the community's hope began to wane. The early hours of the crime were a test of the community's resilience, its response echoing the innate human instinct to protect and safeguard. This period was marked by a sense of unity, urgency, and an undying hope of finding Tristyn safe and unharmed. The grim discovery later that day would shatter this hope, plunging the community into a state of shock and mourning. The discovery of Tristyn Bailey's body on the evening of May 9th, 2021 was a grim turning point in the case. It was a devastating blow that turned the community's fear into a harsh reality, forever changing the landscape of the peaceful St. John's neighborhood. A local homeowner made the tragic discovery near a retention pond at the end of a cul-de-sac, less than a quarter mile from a community center where Tristyn was spotted in the early hours. The remote, marshy location was within walking distance of Tristyn's home, an area where children often played, rendering this discovery even more horrifying. The local police were immediately notified, and the area was quickly cordoned off as a crime scene. Forensic teams worked diligently collecting evidence under the watchful eyes of a shocked community. The St. Johns County Sheriff's Office promptly confirmed that the body found was indeed Tristyn's, putting to rest any lingering hope for safe return. It was a crushing blow not only to her family, but also to the entire community that had rallied together in the desperate search for the missing teenager. The Sheriff's Office, in a press conference, declared the case as a homicide. Tristyn's death was not an accident, but a violent act, fact that magnified the horror and dread enveloping the community. The news of Tristyn's murder sent shockwaves throughout the community, transforming the hopeful energy of the search into profound grief and sorrow. Candlelight vigils were held. Makeshift memorials sprung up, and the community grappled with the harsh reality of the tragic loss. Her cheerleading squad, her school, and everyone who knew her were left reeling from the impact of the loss. Tristyn, described as a vibrant and spirited teenager with an infectious laugh, was suddenly and senselessly gone, leaving a gaping void in many lives. The discovery of Tristyn Bailey's marked a tragic end to her disappearance. It moves a narrative from a search for a missing person to a hunt for a killer, from hope and unity to grief and clamor for justice. This event marked the moment when the St. John's community resilience was truly put to the test, I should say. In the wake of Tristyn Bailey's brutal murder, a suspect soon emerged from within the St. John's community. Aiden Fucci, a 14-year-old classmate of Tristyn. The arrest of such a young individual for such a horrific crime shook the community to its core, thrusting the area into a national spotlight. On May 10th, 2021, just a day after Tristyn's body was discovered, Aiden Fucci was taken into custody. The investigators had found sufficient initial evidence linking him to Tristyn's murder. This rapid arrest was an indication of the diligent and thorough investigation conducted by the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. Fucci, like Tristyn, was a student at the Patriot Oaks Academy. The news that a fellow classmate was implicated in the murder sent shockwaves throughout the student body and the wider community. Initially, Fucci was charged with second-degree murder. However, as investigators delved deeper into the case and the severity of Tristyn's injuries came to light, they discovered evidence suggesting that the murder was premeditated. The charge was subsequently elevated to first-degree premeditated murder, a charge carrying far more severe legal consequences. In the aftermath of Tristyn's disappearance, Fucci displayed behavior that raised eyebrows. His lack of empathy and even seeming enjoyment of the attention he received was deeply disturbing. Most notable was a selfie he posted from the back of a police vehicle, asking his followers if they had seen Tristyn lately, casting further suspicion upon him. Moreover, physical evidence began to accumulate against Fucci. Tristyn's DNA was discovered on his clothes and shoes, and his own DNA was found on her body. Surveillance footage showed the two teenagers walking together on the night of the murder, but only Fucci returning alone, further implicating him in Tristyn's murder. The arrest of Aiden Fucci forced the St. John's community to grapple with the unimaginable reality that a child from their midst could be capable of such a horrific act. This revelation not only led to an intense media spotlight, but also spurred intense debates about crime, punishment, and the justice system's handling of juvenile offenders. As the legal proceedings began, the community remained in shock, their sense of safety irreparably shattered. The arrest of Aiden Fucci marked a painful chapter in the case, forcing the community to confront the unsettling reality of a brutal murder committed by one of their own. As the sheriff's office delved into the case, a series of damning evidence was gradually unveiled against Aiden Fucci. This evidence played a crucial role in his arrest and subsequent indictment. And like we just previously mentioned about the evidence, we're going to dive into each piece of the evidence, including his behavior and that incriminating selfie. Fucci's strange behavior following Tristyn's disappearance was a red flag for both the investigators and the community. He appeared to relish the attention he was receiving, acting inappropriately for a person potentially involved in a serious crime. His most controversial act was that selfie he posted from the back of a police vehicle, which he captioned, "Hey guys, has anybody seen Tristyn lately?" The behavior demonstrated a lack of remorse, further drawing the public's ire. And there's also some forensic evidence that the police were able to gather. The primary cornerstone of the case against Fucci was the extensive forensic evidence. Tristyn's DNA was found on the clothes and shoes of Fucci's bedroom, providing a concrete physical link between the suspect and the victim. Similarly, Fucci's DNA was also discovered on Tristyn's body, establishing his presence at the scene of the crime. CCTV footage played a crucial role in the case. It showed Tristyn and Fucci, like we said, walking towards the area where Tristyn's body was later found and returning alone without her. The footage, combined with the DNA evidence, painted a grim picture of the events leading to Tristyn's murder. And then we have eyewitness testimony. Additionally, several eyewitness accounts were gathered that linked Fucci to Tristyn on the night of her disappearance. Witnesses reported seeing them together, further substantiating the surveillance footage. The combination of forensic evidence, surveillance footage, and Fucci's peculiar behavior in the wake of Tristyn's disappearance painted a damning picture of guilt. It led to Fucci being charged with first-degree murder, despite his young age. The brutality of Tristyn Bailey's murder, coupled with the shocking arrest of a 14-year-old boy as the prime suspect, stirred up public outrage, triggering intense legal proceedings. This case made national headlines, igniting a fierce debate on juvenile justice, social media behavior, and community safety. The revelation of Tristyn's murder and the arrest of Aiden Fucci ignited a firestorm of public outrage. Fucci's lack of remorse, showcased by his selfie, angered the public. The incident served as a stark reminder of the potential dangers lurking within even the most seemingly peaceful communities, raising nationwide concerns about youth violence and safety. Locally, the St. John's community grappled with the shock and anger. Vigils were held, memorials were erected, and cries for justice echoed through the streets. Parents were filled with a renewed sense of fear for their children's safety, while students at Patriots Oak Academy wrestled with the horrific realization that one of their classmates could commit such a heinous act. In the courtroom, the case was fraught with controversy. Despite Fucci's age, a grand jury indicted him as an adult due to the heinous nature of the crime, and the charges were upgraded to first-degree premeditated murder. A plea of not guilty was entered on Fucci's behalf, triggering a trial that promised to be a highly contentious affair. The decision to try Fucci as an adult sparked debates about the appropriateness of such a move. Advocates argued that the gravity of the crime warranted an adult trial, while opponents highlighted Fucci's age and developmental maturity, arguing for a more nuanced approach. As the legal proceedings unfolded, they drew nationwide attention. The trial was followed closely, not just by the local community, but by the nation at large. The case sparked discussions about how to handle severe crimes committed by minors, mental health concerns among adolescents, and the potential influence of social media on impressionable minds. The public outrage and subsequent legal proceedings surrounding the case underscored the tension between the desire for justice and the complex realities of the juvenile justice system. It served as a grim reminder of the potential darkness lurking beneath the surface of everyday life, prompting a nationwide reckoning with the issues of youth violence and community safety. Tristyn Bailey's murder and the arrest of Aiden Fucci sent shockwaves throughout the community, leaving an indelible mark on its residents. The effects were far-reaching, altering perceptions of safety, trust, and youth behavior within this quiet Florida community. Tristyn's murder upended the perception of safety within the St. John's community. What was once considered a safe, family-friendly suburb was now the site of a brutal crime committed by a child. Parents grappled with a heightened sense of fear and apprehension for their children's safety. A tangible shift in trust occurred within the community as neighbors became more vigilant and children's freedoms were inevitably restricted. The shocking revelation that a 14-year-old was responsible for such a heinous crime spurred introspection among parents, educators, and community members. Discussions about adolescent behavior, peer influence, and the importance of mental health awareness and intervention became more prevalent. Parents were forced to have difficult conversations with their children about safety, violence, and the consequences of their actions. Patriot Oaks Academy, where both Tristyn and Fucci were students, faced intense scrutiny. In response, the school took steps to bolster its safety measures and mental health support for students. Counseling services were expanded, and programs addressing violence prevention and peer pressure were introduced. The school's response reflected a broader trend across St. Johns County schools as they grappled with how to respond to such a tragic event. Let us know your thoughts on the case we covered in the comment section below. Do you think Aiden should not have been tried by as an adult, or should he be tried as an adult? Let us know. And of course, if you want to support the channel, you can buy us a copy at buymeacoffee.com/TCNS. And of course, you can also shop our sponsors and support the channel through those ways. You can look at our sponsors in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. We will see you next time.